Welcome to Grew with Portia, the podcast that uncovers the hidden treasures within grief. I'm your host, Portia the producer, and I'm inviting you to join me on a transformative journey where we will exchange laughter, of course the best medicine of them all, reflect on cherished memories. Remember that time that the little boy grabbed my hand instead of his mother's at the amusement park? Yikes. And of course discover gratitude while navigating one of life's hardest challenges, loss. So get ready to grow with me, Portia the producer. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Grew with Portia. I am your host, Portia Booker, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep up with all things Grew with Portia. One of the things that I keep from my mother is one of her quotes that talks about how everybody has the ability to learn. Those of you may remember my mother was an educator for 13 years in the Cleveland Municipal School District, and her main focus was special education. And I often believe that my mother, she joked about having 10 kids, even though she only got 2 biologically, but her other 10 came from the individuals who she had the honor to work with. And so how many of us today feel as though that learning and education is all over the place because of social media, because there's a lot of guilt and shame about asking for help? How many of us have been sitting in that boat for a little while? So I have a special treat for each of you today. So today I have the honor of being joined by an amazing couple, Dr. Joe and Cindi Ferrini, who have authored a new book titled The Special Needs Parent, A Guide to the Life You Never Expected. And special thanks to John Kersey for the introduction to this amazing couple. So welcome, Dr. Joe and Cindi, to Grew with Portia. How are you today?
Good,
Thank you.
good.
Thank you so much for having us today.
Appreciate it.
It's an honor because I know that when you have a child that is different based on society's standards, there
Right.
comes a lot of guilt, shame, grief about the life that you thought you were going to have and the life that has currently been unexpectedly birthed in front of you. And I'm curious, Dr. Joe and Cindi, for our audience who's tuning in, when you think about your life shifting with your child, what did that look like for you? And how did you hold on to your faith during that time when so many people tend to turn away when challenges and adversity come into their wheelhouse?
Well, I'll tell you what, absolutely everything changed. Everything changed. You want to share your story about the blueprints?
Yeah. Well, the reality is, when everybody gets married or when anyone gets married, we all walk down that aisle with an invisible set of blueprints kind of tucked underneath our arms. And upon those blueprints, you kind of set off to build your marriage. And the reality is that when you have a special needs child, that blueprint changes. And unless you are going to be really proactively trying to modify and adjust that blueprint to reality, you're going to have a difficult time to in your marriage, in your family, dealing with people outside your relationship as well. And that just changes your whole world. But the tragically is that on average, what we understand the statistics to be, that 85% of the people with special needs children do not adjust their blueprint. And that causes them to drift apart in their marriage relationship. And that's the fact that we try to deal with in our book is that you have a fact that you have to deal with, and what are the means that are available to you to kind of walk through and navigate through that life that you are now confronted with.
And I would say, you're asking about our faith. First of all, our faith journey began even before we were married. So we had a strong belief in Jesus Christ, and we have wanted to live and glorify him all the days of our life. And this doesn't change that. What changed really is how he would work through us. One of my favorite verses is Psalm 138:8, and that says, "The Lord will accomplish what concerns me." And sometimes I think we go through something like this, and you can pick whatever it is that is a challenge in your life. Maybe it's a wayward child or a divorce or some kind of abuse, or I mean, just fill in the blank, right? Fill in the blank and ask yourself the question, well, what is it that concerns me? What has God allowed? What has God put into our lives? And then to ask, like, how does that concern me? And I really think if we were to go through all of these 45 years of us having our son Joey, we have learned so much. And God has allowed us to take this change, this challenge that we never expected, and bring out the best of us and the worst of us. And how have we manifested him, Jesus, in our life is really what the call is. And so it's been a journey. It's been a long journey. And in some ways, it's been a short journey. Sometimes we think, like, wow, we've been doing this for 45 years. That went really fast. And then in sometimes you think it's been a really slow journey, too. So it has been something that we've walked together, and we're thankful that we've stuck it out. Because there's been times that have been a challenge that you just want to say, you know what, you do this, you take over this. And there are people who have done that, and it's not always an advantage for the couple or for the child or children.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we've started off and where we've seen our journey go. And we just pray that the Lord would continue to give us endurance and perseverance so that we can go the course and have Joey with us as long as we can before our girls, who have lovingly offered to have Joey until they would need to, take him and take over caring for him.
I think you had a very insightful question that it had to do with the relevance or how culture sees our situation, having a special person. And I think one of the great stories in the Bible tells the story of blind Bartimaeus, and that's referenced 3 times in different Gospels. But you may remember the story is that the disciples asked the question, "Who sinned? Was it the parents that sinned that caused him to be blind, or was it this person that sinned to be blind?" And Jesus says it was neither. It was so that God might be honored and glorified through this person's life. And I think that's the privilege that we have at this point, is to help people to recognize the blessing of having a special needs child. Now, does that come naturally? I assure you, it does not. Yeah, it was a challenge, and I'm so thankful Cindy kind of jumped in and feet first and engaged right away with taking care of Joey and all his needs that he had, and I sadly did not jump in as quickly as I should have, and that was because I was just not dealing with the reality of having a special needs child. I mean, my whole world kind of was wrapped around sports and doing sports and participating, and my just to give you an idea what I'm talking about, when we brought Joey home from the hospital, he was wearing a Cleveland Browns uniform. He had a Cleveland Indians baseball cap on, and he had an Ohio State banner in his crib. There were other things in there, but you get the idea. There's a baseball and there's a football, and so what was on my mind was that this was going to be a future athlete. Well, the reality is, and I'll just just kind of zoom to where we are today, is that to this day I've never been able to play catch with my son, and that's just a reality that you engage and face that reality, or you're going to have a difficult time. And so hopefully the book would be one that will help people to really kind of get to that point real quick in their journey, because it's a journey for sure.
When I love to, Dr. Joe, that you brought up the blueprint in the beginning as you're walking down the aisle, exchanging your vows, the I do's, the promises, and not realizing that blueprint that both of you set forth as the foundation would have to essentially kind of be rewritten a little bit as you grew in your marriage, the beautiful children that you have now, and then adjusting to Joey's special needs. And I'm curious too, Dr. Joe and Cindy, when did you both recognize that this challenge that you've had over the last 40 years needed to be pinned, needed to be the message for other people to be able to turn their situation, that obstacle, into an opportunity?
That's a great question.
I love that question.
Yeah.
No, we've written several books. We've never thought ever we would become authors. But when you say yes to the Lord and different things that He has for you, He puts you on this course that you also couldn't have expected. So put it on your blueprint, but it's put it in pencil because He's going to use an eraser and erase it for you and give you something else. But just the course of our lifetime was such that years ago, many years ago, we brought to Cleveland the Family Life Conference, and it was a marriage conference. And that really became, we've done ministry all of our married life, discipling, helping others grow in their faith. That's the definition of discipling, making them disciples of Jesus, and helping them grow in their walk with the Lord. That's where it really all started. And then people would ask us to do something, and we'd say yes. Of course, we would see that as the Lord putting that in front of us. So when we brought the Cleveland Family Life Conference, at the time it was called Conference, to Cleveland, we had no idea that some 10 years later we would be asked to speak for that conference. That was never on our radar, never on our blueprint. And so when we were asked to speak, and by the way, you don't call them up and say, "Would you like us to speak?" They call you to speak. So we were shocked and of course pleased, and we said yes. And it was quite a journey in itself, because there was a lot that they expected of us, and it was a wonderful opportunity. We did that for 20 years. And so because of that, the messages that we would share about our family and about Joey, people would ask us questions. And pretty soon we began to think, this is only if we're here do they hear this message. Other people on the team, there were other people speaking, had special needs children, but it wasn't always a part of their marriage. And that's not to say that it should have been. Their message was a different message. And so we began to think, we should put something together so when someone leaves here, they would be able to have a book or a direction or something. And that's really how it happened. And so this is our third special needs book. Our first one is called Unexpected Journey. The second one is called Love All Ways. And it really goes through the wedding vows for a couple, but with the thought of, how are you going to embrace your marriage while you're embracing this special needs that takes up so much time, energy, and life, to make your marriage work? And then we have this new book, The Special Needs Parent, a guide to a life you never expected. So really, I really have to give credit to Family Life and their part in our life and our part in their life for this, how it came to be today.
Well, we just basically responded to people's questions that they would come up to us as we would share our story, and they would then share their story, and they would ask the question, "What is out there to help me get through the day?" I mean, these people were crying for some help, and as we did our research, we found that there wasn't anything really available except some flowery explanation for why things are happening the way they're happening in your life. But that wasn't going to help these people. They wanted some practical how-tos in how to deal with the situation at hand.
When we first learned of Joey's diagnosis and what this would mean for our family, for our life, for his life, I went to the library at the time and looked up different things and looked what kind of books could I get to learn more. I even talked to two other moms whose children were more like teenage to adult years. And even they said the same thing as what I was reading. Life is good and life will be fine. God is good and everything will turn out. Well, that is true. There's nothing false about that. But I want to tell you that there are days that are not good. And there are moments that I'm not good and I'm not happy about the day and I'm not doing well today. So what we really want to do in our first book, Unexpected Journey, was to be raw and real. And we've done that in this book too, but this book has a little bit different twist and direction to it. But the point was your day, you may wake up and have 4 days in a row that are terrible, or 4 years in a row that are terrible. And what are you going to do with it? Maybe in the end, we can all look back and say, God was good and he is good. But when you're in the midst of really struggling, seizures, disabilities, we have many friends who have children with disabilities. But one friend has two girls, only a couple of years apart, 100% care in every single way, feeding, changing, showering. They don't speak. I mean, 100% care. Now you picture that they're not in an institution. These parents are caring for these children. And so we didn't want our book to be, everything is fine. I mean, picture that. They have a staff that has to come and help. How would you, if you're listening, how would you like to have someone coming into your home, maybe 2 people, 3 people every day to help you do what these children need? Your home isn't your home. Your home is not your own life. There's a lot to it. And while that has not been our story, we've had many therapists, doctors, teachers, bus drivers, aides. I could list them all because many of them I'm still in contact with, who have been a part of Joey's life. They enter your life, and maybe it's for a season, maybe it's for a lifetime, but it's not just like the three of you, or if you have more children, the five of you. You're engaging in a community that is a big community that needs to help you. And I will say this, and you mentioned your mom was an educator. Joey had the best education, the best teachers we could have ever asked for. And we count that as one of the greatest blessings as we look back on his schooling. Um, Fantastic. People who loved what they did, who loved Joey and the others in the classroom and wanted the best for them. We couldn't have asked for
You
more.
can't fake the genuineness of these people, and we you just can't help but fall in love with these people and just so appreciative of who they are and what they do, and uh, and they know what you do as well, as a parent. But it is just a miracle of God that God raises up people like your mother to step up and do this, because it's not the normal world in which we have to people have to deal with in general.
Yes.
So we appreciate our teachers.
Oh, yes. And I just want to add to, as parents, sometimes we will spend, and this could be a minimum of 30 minutes trying to figure out something that our son needs or wants, something he's trying to express to us. And we're trying our hardest to understand what he's saying, or find out what rabbit trail he's on, that we can figure it out and have an answer for him or provide something for him. And teachers are no different. They're with them, for the good part of the day. And so you have to look at every single person who's in our life as such a blessing, that they come alongside, because you can tell when people are patient and they're not. They want to hurry things along when your child needs 10 seconds, 20 seconds just to process it, let alone to speak it. And so we are just most grateful. And so really, this book, we've written it for parents, but in many ways we've even given the thanks throughout the book to teachers and to others in our life who have really gotten us to where we are, and to a place where we would never have gotten on our own, because we're not studied in this way. And so we're so grateful. And I'll just tell one quick little story, that when Joey was younger, on his IEP, and for those who don't know what that is, it's an individual educational plan. And so it would give all the different things in different areas of his life that they want to try to get him to learn the next thing. Well, tying his shoes must have been on the IEP. I don't know how many years. And finally, I said to this one teacher, I said, we have had this on this for, like, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years. I said, I don't think he has the dexterity to do that. I said, can we take that off, or do we have to leave that on and hope that we hit the mark? She was like so excited. She was, I think I'm going to do a cartwheel. And I said, we can get Velcro shoes if there's a time that we're not able to tie shoes or we need that. I said, maybe we should just take that off. She was delighted. But these teachers and these people that help, they're helping us as parents to get to where we need to go to get our child where they need to go. We are most grateful for those people in our lives.
If this book can just help people just take the right next step, that's all we're trying to do at this point. and grateful, as Cindy said, that we've been given this privilege to be able to do this. And again, it was Moody that came to us, and they contracted with us to write the book, and we were honored that they would do that, of course. But we just hope that this would be a blessing to people to help them take that right next step. Yeah.
Well, and give them something tangible, right? Because let's be realistic, in the world of social media, AI, there's a lot of information out there. Yes. But that information does not touch the experiences that come from both of you firsthand that spans over 40 years. So I'm really excited, to definitely put the information in our show notes about your book to give parents and families something that will help them, right? Because stories, as we mentioned in the beginning, stories from the Bible that we hold close, stories about Joey learning, maybe tying his shoes might have been a little challenging, but why not switch him to Velcro? Hey, why not switch him to something that has honey on the bottom where he can, stay grounded all the time, right? And do cartwheels, right? These are the things that we hold close. Yeah. Dr. Joe and Cindy, this has been a beautiful conversation, and we're going to be wrapping up here soon. But for our audience who's tuning in, if there's parents, educators who would like to get a copy of the book, who would love to connect with both of you to have you maybe come and speak at their next event, how can they connect with you today?
Well, the best way would be to come to our website. That would be the first, and that would either be at cindyferrini.com or joeferrini.com, either one. But the book is available through Moody Publishers, who published it, but it will also be, and is actually also available now, ready for distribution. And it would be at Target, Walmart, Amazon, Christian Books, pretty much anywhere that you would get a book. Once you click on do your Google and however you want to get there, you'll find it. It will be there. And we hope that many people will get it. What I have to say, I love that you just said you have all this social media and AI, but you know what? Experience is not what AI has. AI can tell you certain things and give you certain information, but AI has not lived the journey of special needs. And many people who have opinion on it haven't either. And that goes, we could put that across a lot of different things. But the point is, we have the experience, and we didn't just tell Joey's story in this book. This book is about many different people, stories of other people, because Joey is just one, if you will, one picture of special needs. There's so much out there. Some things are visible and some things are invisible. Some things are within the brain that don't show in a person's stature or walk or inability or ability to speak a certain way. So it's not just our story. And I think that's the important thing, that parents who pick this up, they will find their story in between the lines of ours.
And that's the thing. I think sometimes we diminish our story because of the societal narratives, the different things on social media, these quote unquote experts that really don't have an ounce of understanding other than the books that were written 50 years ago, right? So for our audience, those of you can do a Google search for the name of the book, The Special Needs Parent, A Guide to the Life You Never Expected. You can also go to Cindy's website, cindyferrini.com, and we'll also include that in the show notes. Well, everybody, that was Dr. Joe and Cindi Ferrini that you heard from today on this episode of Grew with Portia. And that concludes our conversation. And until next time, everybody, peace and hair grease, everyone.